Alrighties. It is 12 o'clock, so I will begin. Thank you all for joining us today. It's so great to see all of you guys here with us. Um, and I guess I'll start off the webinar introducing a little bit about myself. So I'm a dietitian working with Oscar, and I'm actually based in New South Wales, Sydney. Um, and I think one thing that you should know about me is that I really love food. And also love educating people about food and fixing, what Google says that is wrong out there. And I know there is a ton of information um, that we can just access on the web or on Google. And with that much information, it can get really confusing, especially when there's so many conflicting messages around nutrition myths and nutrition facts. So I think that's why we thought it'd be really good to put together this food myth busting session, which may be a great way to help debunk some of these confusing messages we've been getting about certain nutrition topics. Before we start, I want to just thank you all so much for all the suggestions and all the topics that you've put out there for us to cover. I just want to say you've really inspired us all to write more articles and even maybe have another one of these webinars to really address these topics. Um, and unfortunately, because of time, we won't be able to cover every single topic that has been requested, but we've really tried our best to combine some of the similar themed topics together. And if anyone had any questions, would like some clarification around the stuff that we've covered today, please feel free to write them down. And our lovely marketing team will be sending out a short feedback form where you can pop those questions in, and we will aim to address them either through more articles or through another one of these webinar sessions. So without further ado, we're going to get started and kick off our first nutrition myth to bust today. And the first myth is that dairy is actually bad for you. And this is false. Now, for many people, cutting out milk and dairy is likely to do more harm than good. Milk and dairy foods are really affordable. They're safe to consume daily. They're a wholesome and delicious source of essential nutrients. So I don't know about you, but when you think dairy, many people would think the nutrition calcium. But did you know that a single glass of milk can actually provide you lots of other nutrients too, like B12, potassium, iodine, and even B12? So there's lots of evidence as well on top of that dairy will keep our muscles, our bones, our teeth, skin, and vision healthy. It reduces fatigue and tiredness because it actually helps the body efficiently release energy from the foods that we eat. It maintains a healthy blood pressure, and it even supports brain and immune functioning. So plenty of benefits having dairy in your diet. Now, I think it's important to know that the most important thing is how people eat dairy, as opposed to just demonizing dairy itself. So if you take cheese for an example, if it's constantly consumed in things like pastas, burgers, pizzas, those things are already high in sodium and saturated fat. So really the key take home is that we're eating it in moderation, eating it with whole grains and crackers, yogurt, and fruits and things like that. Yeah, so that's our first myth, and we'll move on to our next one that you guys have put up. So what is the next myth? Yes. Frozen veggies are better for you than fresh veggies. This one's a tricky one, but it is actually false. And I say it's a tricky one because the truth is that both fresh and frozen veggies are good for you. So it is true that as soon as fruits and vegetables are picked, they start to lose their nutrients. And so freezing them might actually help preserve the nutrition. But in saying that, fresh vegetables are also an amazing option, especially when it comes to taste and texture. Nothing beats a fresh salad that you can't get frozen. And so nutrition wise, if fresh vegetables are eaten in a few days after purchasing them, it makes a minimal difference. And so at the end of the day, eating vegetables fresh or frozen is better than eating nothing at all. So just go with the option that best suits your taste and budget. And that's really the key take home message. All right, we'll pop on to the next one. Oh, this one's interesting. Eating cooked carrots is healthier than raw carrots. Now, this one is actually true. Amazing. Did you know that cooking certain vegetables could actually help your body absorb nutrients way more easily? This is because cooking breaks down the cell walls of the vegetables and it makes its nutrients more available to your body. And carrots are indeed one of them. So it provides almost double the amount of antioxidants when it's cooked compared to eating it raw. And as a fun nutrition fact, just to throw it out there, boiling carrots with its skin on actually prevents the nutrients from leaking out into the cooking water. And so when possible, remember to leave the skin on your carrots when you're boiling them, or avoid boiling it longer for 15 minutes, as boiling the vegetable for too long causes the water-soluble vitamins to leach into the cooking water. So again, similar to what we discussed before, eating raw carrots, though, is better than eating none at all. All right, we'll move on to our next myth. Also carrot related. Carrots can really help you see better. Now, this one, if we think about it, yes, it is true. Now, in saying that, a diet of carrots won't give a blind person 20/20 vision, but the vitamins found in carrots can improve and promote overall eye health. So carrots contain beta carotene, which is this substance that converts into vitamin A, and vitamin A is the important nutrient for eye health. It prevents the formation of cataracts and helps prevent macular degeneration. So having an extreme lack of vitamin A can cause blindness. However, if your vision problems aren't related to vitamin A deficiencies, your vision won't change no matter how many carrots you eat. So that is that. And we'll move on to our next myth. This one's really interesting. And it's been a hot topic. I think lots of you guys have requested for this myth to be busted. And so this one's actually true. Butter is better than margarine and other eggs. Now, I just wanted to clarify, the reason butter may actually be a better option is because some brands of margarine contain a certain substance called trans fats. Now, trans fats are formed when liquid oils turn into solid fats through this process called hydrogenation. And some of you might know this, but trans fat is actually known to increase the risk of many, many chronic diseases, and that is what we want to avoid. So typically, the older brands of margarines had high levels of trans fats that raised the levels of bad cholesterol, which is what we want to avoid. However, some of the newer margarines in this day and age are now free of trans fats, and they can be a very reasonable choice as long as it's used in moderation, as they're still rich in calories. So when shopping for brands of margarine, the one thing that I would say to look out for is to make sure that there is zero trans fats in the margarine that you are buying. Alrighty, so we'll move on to our next myth. Cheese gives you nightmares. This one is definitely a very interesting myth. And yes, fortunately for all you cheese lovers out there, you are in luck because it is false. That there is no proven evidence to suggest that eating cheese before bed gives you weird dreams or nightmares. The research is extremely limited, it's flawed, and the facts are just not there. So rather than bringing on nightmares, the good news is that a study actually found that it may have a relaxing effect. The main reason for this is that the amino acid present in cheese is called tryptophan, and your body actually uses this amino acid tryptophan to produce serotonin, which is commonly known as the feeling happy, feeling good hormone that plays a key role in good sleep. Now, on the flip side, eating very heavy, very fatty foods with cheese right before bedtime can actually cause a bit of indigestion and it messes up with your sleep. So, if your sleep is disturbed throughout the night, you might then remember your nightmares more than usual. So, maybe that's why some people found that cheese gave them nightmares. But the reality is that it is not. It is has a relaxing effect. So, there you go. Alrighty. Oh, we've already busted that one. Yep. Okay, the gluten-free diet is better for me. And that is false. Unless, the disclaimer is, unless you have celiac disease. Um, so there is actually no compelling evidence that going on a gluten-free diet will improve health or prevent disease if you don't have celiac disease. If you cut out all gluten off your diet, there is actually a risk that you might miss out on nutritious whole grains, miss out on fiber, and you miss out on a ton of micronutrients. In fact, whole grains can actually lower your cholesterol levels and even help regulate blood sugar levels. And this is particularly important for those at risk of heart disease or diabetes. And in addition, some gluten containing foods are a very important source of vitamins, of minerals. Some of these include B12, iron, magnesium. So keep that in mind. I also did want to say that some processed gluten free foods contain high amounts of added sodium, added sugar, added fats, and actually consuming too much of these foods may even lead to weight gain, blood sugar swings, and high blood pressure because of all this added sodium, sugar, and fat. So the point is that just because something has a gluten-free label doesn't necessarily make a food healthy. So the main kind of tip that we want to give you is that if you don't have celiac disease or you don't have gastrointestinal irritation, we recommend reducing highly processed foods from your diet before thinking about removing gluten. So things like adding in more fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grain, and even lean proteins. Many people will find that, they feel better just by eating better, not by removing gluten itself. Okay, our next one. This was probably one of my favorite myths that I've had to research about, and it's that microwaving food destroys nutrients in food. And let's see if this one, it is false. Now, microwaves may slightly reduce the nutrients of some foods, but not enough to make a significant difference. As far as cooking methods go, microwaving is actually one of the best ways to preserve nutrients in food. Now, this is because all forms of cooking actually reduces the nutrient contents of food. When you heat food, some of the water from the food evaporates, and that takes a portion of the nutrients with them. And if you want to retain the nutrients in your food, then you want to cook them as quickly and as with as little water as needed. And that is actually exactly what microwaving does. In saying that, when you boil vegetables for too long, I mentioned earlier, that's not ideal because it causes the water-soluble vitamins to leach into the cooking water. But because microwaves penetrate the food, they heat it much, much more efficiently and quickly. And so there is less time for vitamins to break down. In fact, microwaving actually retains the same nutrient levels as steaming, which is traditionally considered to be the best method of cooking for nutrient retention. So if steaming vegetables is not a feasible option or it's too troublesome to do it, microwaving is actually a great alternative to cooking your food and your vegetables. So yeah, okay, we're nearly there. Um, Eggs are bad for your heart. Now, this one is false. Um, Although it would seem logical to think that eggs would be bad for heart health because research has shown that it has cholesterol inside of eggs, especially in the egg yolks. However, the more recent studies and research has shown that most of the cholesterol in our body is actually made by our liver, and it's not from the cholesterol that we eat. In fact, there is a study that found that having one egg a day has helped increase the levels of HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol. So, on top of that, I just wanted to give eggs a plug and say that, eggs are highly nutritious and it's super affordable. It supplies many micronutrients that is very, very hard to get from food. It's an excellent source of quality protein, which means that it contains all 9 essential amino acids to support effective muscle growth and recovery. And lastly, it can even assist with weight management. Since it's such a rich source of high quality protein, eggs are generally more filling and it can help increase satiety of meals, which then manages hunger levels in general. Um, and I think I just want to say it out there that it is important to remember that no one food in isolation is necessarily good or bad for you. However, eggs can be enjoyed freely as part of a healthy diet in a general population. In saying that, those with a risk of heart disease, it is actually recommended to limit them to just about 7 a week, which turns out to be one a day. Um, yeah, so feel free to keep enjoying your eggs for all you egg lovers out there. Okay, we'll move on to our next one. Okay, similar to the one before, but red meat is bad for you. And this one is false as well. So, similar to the topic before about eggs, like I said, no one food is necessarily bad for you. Red meat has plenty of benefits and can be part of a healthy diet in moderation. So, some of these benefits that I think is really important to note, um, it contains many important nutrients like protein, which again helps to build muscle mass, enzyme, bones, and other tissues. It contains iron, and I wanted to also stop and flesh this out a little bit more. The iron found in red meat is called heme iron, which just basically means that it is more easily absorbed by the body compared to the iron found in plants or plant-based sources. Um, so it also contains B12, which is actually very, very hard to find in food. Meat and dairy is the main source of dietary B12, which is why those following maybe a vegetarian or a vegan diet may need a B12 supplementation to prevent deficiencies. Um, Again, while red meat itself isn't bad for you, we need to take into account other factors, such as how often you're eating it, how you're cooking it, or how you're preparing it. When you're cooking red meat, we want to try avoiding cooking it at temperatures that are really, really high, or char grilling it too much, because all of this, the char grilling of it can generate carcinogenic compounds, which is what we want to avoid. Um, we probably recommend choosing lean cuts of meat as well, just to avoid that excessive saturated fat intake. Um, and as like a note while I was researching, the general guide from the World Cancer Research is to aim for about 3 servings of red meat per week. So, like I said, in moderation, it is really, really beneficial for overall health. Okay, we are down to our last 2 myths. And so this one's a very, I would also say it's one of the top of the hot topics of nutrition myths. Carbs are bad for you. And yes, we can gladly say that that is false. Now, carbohydrate has had a bad reputation in many, many communities, and it often gets the blame for, causing lots of diseases like obesity, inflammation, diabetes, etc., etc. Now, the problem with this claim is that not all carbohydrates are created equal. And to break down this myth properly, we need to understand what carbohydrates actually are. So I'll strip it back a little bit, and then we can dive a little bit more into this myth. So carbohydrates are a macronutrient, so a main nutrient found in many, many foods and drinks. And this eventually breaks down into glucose, which is a sugar molecule, into your body. Now, our bodies uses carbohydrates as the main source of energy. So it keeps our brain, it keeps our kidneys, our heart, our muscles, nervous system running every single day without thinking about it. And like the slide said, carbs can be classified into either simple or complex carbohydrates. So simple ones are the ones that are digested easily, it gets absorbed into your bloodstream faster. And traditional examples, you would think of things like sugar, chips, bread, biscuits, rice and pasta, maybe. But did you know that things like fruits, vegetables, and dairy are also examples of simple carbohydrates? And on the other hand, complex carbs take longer to digest, and they're then absorbed by your bloodstream at a much slower rate, which helps you feel fuller for longer, and it provides like a steady source of glucose for your body compared to simple carbs. So we're thinking of things like whole foods, beans, whole grain breads, pastas, and even starchy vegetables like sweet potato. Now, there is a lot of evidence out there showing that a diet high in complex carbohydrates and fiber reduces the risk of disease, like heart disease and stroke, and even some forms of cancer, like mainly colon and rectal cancers. So despite what you may have seen on social media or you've heard from your friends or family, carbs can and should be part of a nourishing diet. Now, the key to this is knowing and understanding the types of carbohydrates you are feeding your body and opting for high fiber complex carbohydrates where possible. Okay. And that brings us to our last myth. Sugar substitutes are bad for you. And this one is also false. Yes, correct. So sugar substitutes, or we also call them artificial sweeteners, they can be a way to help people, lessen their use of sugar or manage their weight or even lose weight. But in general, sugar substitutes are safe, and they're safe for healthy adults. And so I just want to flesh out some common examples. It's like Equal, aspartame, Splenda. You might have seen stevia as well, that's around. Or some of the less common ones is monk fruit sweeteners or lohan guo. Those are some examples. If you look at the back of a nutrition ingredients of a product, you might see them as examples of artificial sweeteners. And so these sweeteners provide sweetness, and they enhance the flavor of food without the calories of sugar. The benefits of this is that they don't contribute to tooth decay or cavities. They also don't raise your blood sugar levels. So this is really, really helpful if you're having diabetes, or you need to be careful of the amount of sugar that you consume. They're also helpful in trying to control the amount of calories you consume, since they give the sweetness of sugar, but they don't have the calories in it. But remember that just because a food or product has sweetness in it doesn't necessarily make it healthy. But it is helpful in reducing overall sugar intake. Now, I want to point out, like, the only times you should be careful taking sweeteners is if you have a rare genetic disease called phenylketonuria. So studies have shown that foods and drinks with aspartame can lead to serious health problems with this condition. The other thing to note is probably if you're suffering from gastrointestinal issues, because research has found that using artificial sweeteners may irritate the gut and cause symptoms like bloating, gas, diarrhea, um, and the amount of sweeteners used to cause this symptom will vary from person to person. So it's probably best to chat to your dietitian or a dietitian about this if you're thinking about that to get that personalized information. But overall, in general, artificial sweeteners can help people enjoy sweetness without the excess calories, and if used in moderation, can be part of a healthy diet. Um, Awesome. So again, that brings us to our last myth, and I really hope that this webinar has helped shed a bit of light on the really confusing nutrition myths out there. And here at Oscar, that like we're here to help. And even though, like I said before, that I'm in New South Wales, our dietetic services kind of are based all around Australia, and we help with aged care. We help with diet and nutrition services in aged care, childcare, and if you're after more tailored dietary support, we have a private clinic in Victoria, in Mulgrave. However, for those of you who are not in Victoria like me, fret not, there are telehealth services available as well. So yes, once again, thank you so much for being with us today and for all your amazing topic suggestions. Like I said before, if you have any like questions about what we've talked about today, feel free to write them down and put them into the feedback form that our lovely marketing team will send out. Unfortunately, I won't really have time to address like additional questions today, but we'd love to get in touch and try to clarify as much as we can through the survey form. So yes, I thank you so much for your time, and I wish you guys a good rest of your day.